Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head through to Glasgow and we're going to have a look at a beer from a brewery who have become quite recognisable throughout Scotland over the last couple of years. So this is going to be my second review from Drygate Brewing Company, who you can find in the grounds of the Tennant's Well Park Brewery, and for this one we're having a taste of the Seven Peaks. So originally this beer was a 5% Mosaic IPA until quite recently. I'm filming this review for you at the start of September 2019, and from what I understand, in the last month they've changed the recipe to make this version. So this particular beer is a 3.9% Session IPA. So really curious to see how this one turns out. I didn't manage to try the original version of this beer. In fact, the last beer that I reviewed from Drygate was the Glasgow IPA, which if I remember correctly it was around 4% ABV as well. But curious to see how this brewery's evolved over the last couple of years, and at some point you will see a brewery visit video that I filmed there as well. I went to visit Drygate when I was through in Glasgow about a week ago now, so you can look forward to that one as well. And as always, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Drygate Brewing before. I will add one more in the fairly near future. I've got one of their more experimental beers to have a look at. This one is one of their core range beers. So there's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Scottish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Drygate Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So the Drygate Brewery, as I mentioned to you, is based in Wellgate in Glasgow, which is a little bit to the east of the main city centre, over the other side of Strathclyde University. But it's based in an old box factory which has a 7-toothed roof, hence the Drygate Brewery logo. You can kind of see it just here on the very top of the can. But the company started back in 2014, and it's a joint venture between the parent company of the Tennants Group, which is C&C, and also Williams Brothers Brewing have a share in this as well. But on site they have a bar, a beer hall, restaurant, event space, a sun terrace and a bottle shop. As I say, you'll see that in the brewery visit video that I did as well when that publishes. And apparently they do have a sign there that says great beers and great beards, and I didn't manage to see that because, you know, maybe I would have got a free beer or something like that. But the brew pub is marketed as being the experimental sort of wing of the company, and the main reason for this is apparently that their huge window, if you like, lets people actually watch the brewing process going on. And when I was in there, they were actually working on brewing a couple of different beers. So basically with this brewery you do have a core range of beers that goes out to the supermarkets and things. You've got the Glasgow IPA, you've got a rye beer that goes out as well. There's the apple beer. There's this one, the Seven Peaks, and there's the Orinoco Stout, which is one that I've been told that I really need to try. Apparently that's quite good, but their brew plant is 24 hectolitres, and that pretty much allows them to supply the whole of Scotland's supermarkets, and they do pilot brews and stuff like that too. But apparently they also do tours, and they allow people to participate in the brewing process as well, and at any one time the bar has 24 different tap beers, and they've got a good 200 or so beers in the little bottle shop that's on site as well. This is actually where I bought this one, along with the other one that you'll see me review a little bit later on. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Drygate Brewing Company. Essentially this is the kind of craft division of Tennants, if you like, and Williams Brothers, as I say, from Alloa do have a share in this brewery too. They're very good at their session beers. You've seen me review a number of those as well, one of my local breweries. But if you get the chance and you're in Glasgow, this is one of the craft beer destinations that you should check out, because they've got good food there, and they've always got kind of guest beers and collaborations, things that you wouldn't find otherwise from Drygate. I would say that their core beers tend to be, you know, the kind of gateway drinkable beers, and those are the reason they're sold in the supermarket. But the experimental stuff does tend to be really pretty damn good, I have to say. So a brewery that you definitely want to check out. But that's all you really need to know about Drygate Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that as well. That'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. And if you want to check out all the different beers that they've done, check out either the Rate Beer page or the Untappd page. But yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So The original version of this beer, which is the only one that's still listed on the website as of September 2019, it says that the original one of these was hopped with Mosaic, Equinaut and Cascade, so I'm guessing that it will still be the same, but maybe they've changed the malt base to take the alcohol of it down a little bit, but really nicely presented. There you can see at the top there, as I was saying, the brewery building basically has the old factory that it's based in has like a 7 kind of peaked roof, and that's what the Drygate logo is. It says on the side here, named for the distinctive roof of our Glasgow brewery but inspired by the Scottish outdoors, Seven Peaks celebrates the juxtaposition of the human-made and the natural. From beaches to Ben Nevis, a journey through our country is encapsulated in this session strength IPA. I'm not going to read the next little bit of it because it's actually telling you about the beer itself, because we want to do that, but it says Drygate Brewing Company have been making beer in the historic heart of Glasgow since 2014. We brew with open doors and open minds. We believe good beer can come from anyone and anywhere. Collaboration with our community is at our core. We love showcasing creators of beer, food, art, design, music, comedy, poetry and more. So yeah, and I have to say I do like the cans. For a long time their beers were just in bottles, I think, for the first 2 years or so, and I think 2 years ago they started doing them in cans, but obviously I have not reviewed any in the cans yet, and I think the tall boys are new. They were mainly 330s before, from what I understand. But yeah, let's have a taste of this beer then and see how we go on. Lovely artwork, as I was saying, and we'll get this out and into the glass. When I was in the bottle shop, actually, I think they had a couple of the original recipe, 7 Peaks, so that maybe would have made an interesting review, but the guy told me they had been sitting there for a little while, so they weren't at the freshest, whereas these had just been canned up a day or two before, so that was why I went for the new one. Plus it's the new recipe, so you know, it does kind of make sense a little bit. So yeah, let's take a closer look at this and see how we get on then. So as you can see, and as you would expect from an IPA, this one's poured quite a rich orangey amber colour. There was one or two little bits of sediment kind of floating about in that. Maybe my fridge was just a little bit cold, but you can see there's about a finger and a half of a frothy, I would say cream coloured head. It's not perfect white, maybe ivory coloured is another way to describe it. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of the head there. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of haziness to this beer, but at the same time it is a little bit transparent, nowhere near as hazy as you're going to get from some of these New England IPAs. But I mean, overall it does look pretty damn nice, and just as you would expect from an IPA. So let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just see how we get on. So that smells pretty good, I have to say. There's definitely Mosaic, and I'm pretty sure there's Equinaut still in here as well. I think just going by the aromas, I think, as I said, it was Mosaic, Equinaut and Cascade that were in the original one. Just going by the aromas that come out of this, I'm pretty sure that is still the same. It'll just be the malt base that's been changed in this. So I mean, the Cascade is actually really, it's a very distinctive hop. I mean, I was used to it because of the Harveston Schiehallion. That's basically a Cascade hopped Pilsner beer. So I really know the Cascade hop quite well. That was one of the ones that I was first introduced to. And you can smell that straight away. It's got quite a distinctive floral character, and the grapefruit that you get out of it is just, you know, really nice and quite juicy. It's not pungent in the same way that you would get from Chinook, for example. So you've got a nice little bit of a kind of juicy grapefruity note to this one. The floral qualities, as I say, they're a little bit more kind of spicy and things like that. But you can definitely pick up the limey notes from the Equinaut in here as well. And the oranges, the tangerine orangey notes from Mosaic are definitely in there too. So I would say if you had to choose which fruit in this one is more prominent, I think the orange is kind of sort of the orangey tangerine notes from the Mosaic. They're sort of forming the backbone of this. You get the slightly juicier limey notes at the front of the beer, and the Cascade, a little bit of that Cascade grapefruity note is in there too, but I think the orange is the most prominent, with the limey notes kind of sitting on the front of it. But it does smell pretty nice and inviting, that. In terms of the malt base, it's quite an interesting one, this, because the malt base comes across as being quite sweet. You've definitely got a little bit of a biscuity sweetness in there. I want to say there's a little touch of a sweet caramel to it as well, and it's a little bit toasted, which is nice. Yeah, I would say that. There's a bit of a bready quality to it. It's a sort of white bready, bread and buttery quality. I don't know if there'd be a bit of diacetyl in there or something like that. But it definitely comes across as being quite quite smooth and bready. I would guess there'll be some German malt in there because it does have that nice almost German smoothness to it, but it definitely, the malt base really leans towards being a bit more kind of sweet and biscuity, a little bit like McVitie's Digestives, but at the same time a little bit more rich and kind of caramelly. So I do like the way the aroma goes together in this one. I mean, in terms overall compared to other IPAs, this isn't an aroma that's going to blow the head off you. It comes across as being very nice and quite blended. But I really like how that goes together. In terms of the green side of the hops, I would say this one, it has a little touch of earthiness to it, and that will be coming from the Mosaic. Mosaic can give you a little bit of earthiness in there. It's not too pungent, but you will notice it. It's got a nice light kind of floral quality to it. It's not too spicy or anything like that, but it's, you know, with these high alpha acid hops, Mosaic and Equinaut are, I think they're both around sort of 12-13% alpha acid, but the Cascade, I'm sure, is about 7 or 8% alpha acid, maybe a bit less. So you don't have the kind of big pungenty notes that you'll get. You don't have big massive floral notes that you would maybe expect from Mosaic and Equinaut. I suspect that's probably because they're putting those in as the dry hopping things. They're putting those in later in the brew, whereas maybe the Cascade is the original kind of bittering hop, if you like. That's probably what they're doing here, and that's why it's got the floral quality is coming out the way it is. It has a little bit of grassiness to it as well, but overall the aroma is definitely one of these ones where it's all about how things blend together. Malt base is sweet, like I said. It's got a nice juicy fruity quality, and it's just got some nice kind of subtle elements to the green side of the hops too. But overall, a nice aroma to this one. As I always say, take a bit of time and enjoy that for yourself before you taste the beer. But let's have a go at this one then and just see how we get on. This one is the new recipe for the Seven Peaks as of September 2019. A 3.9% session IPA with from Drygate Brewing through in Glasgow. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah. It's pretty nice actually. It comes across in the flavour as being quite grainy actually. It's interesting that, because it really kind of dries out in the middle of your palate and it has that kind of graininess, but in the further you go into the aftertaste, on the sides of your tongue, it really starts to sweeten up. I've also just noticed something about this beer as well that I didn't see before. This one actually has the pant that I would see over back home in Sweden. So I wonder, I've never seen these beers actually being exported over to Sweden yet. The top one I believe is for Norway and the second one is for Sweden below it. So that's kind of interesting. I haven't seen these beers actually being exported over to Sweden yet, so maybe that's something that's in the works. I'll need to keep an eye out for them in Systembolaget. But yeah. But yeah, I like how this goes together. It's definitely a very kind of sessionable IPA, this one. I mean, it is what it says on the tin, basically. But yeah, let's try and break this flavour down a little bit then. So straight away, you're going to feel that nice sort of pale malty quality, just blank at the middle of your tongue. The further that you go into the aftertaste with this one, it really does become quite grainy. It's almost got a little bit of an English bitter quality to it in the middle of the palate actually, which is kind of interesting. So I wonder, you know, could you say that this beer is more like an English IPA rather than an American IPA? It's using American hops and things like that, but the way the graininess comes out in this one, it sort of, I was expecting this beer to be really quite biscuity and sweet in terms of its flavour, but it really leans more towards the kind of grainy side of things. But in fairness, when I think about the Gladeye IPA, the Gladeye IPA was like that as well. But once your mouth adjusts to it, the sort of impact of that graininess, it does go away a little bit. But I would say, yeah, definitely, if I was putting this into a specific subcategory of the IPA, it's definitely more of an English IPA, this, rather than an American IPA. So be aware of that if you do buy it. So yeah, that graininess, as you can feel, like you get that smooth bready quality in the beginning, then the middle of your palate dries out and you start to get this grainy quality. I don't know if it's rye actually. Did they have rye in the beer? It's almost got the same kind of spice level as rye to it, to be honest. No, it just basically says yeast and hot barley. So yeah, it's just a regular kind of grain. I thought it would maybe have a little bit of rye or something in there, malted rye, because it really does have a little bit of a kind of spicy quality to it in the middle of your palate, actually. But yeah, in the centre of your tongue, there's a little bit of a biscuity quality there. It's not quite as strong and caramelly as I was thinking it would be from the malt base, or from the aroma rather, but you do get a little bit of a biscuity sweetness in the very centre of your palate, and the sweetness just pushes its way out a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. But then as you move out from the centre of your palate, it definitely gets a little bit more kind of grainy and things like that. This beer really does dry out in the middle of your palate the further you go into the aftertaste. But yeah, in terms of the hoppy side of things then, there's not really much more you can say about the malt base in this one. It does get a little bit more kind of bread and buttery as you go further into the aftertaste, which I think, I do think there's a wee bit of diacetyl in there or something like that. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've definitely got a bit of earthiness there. I think that'll be the mosaic that's giving you that, but in fairness, Cascade, if that is in there, would give you a bit of that too. But as you come further forward along the sides of your palate, it does actually come across as being a good little bit floral and aromatic, which is quite nice. It has a little bit of spice to it as well, and in fairness, the slight spiciness that it has from the floral side of the hops really builds a bridge between the kind of grainy aspects of the malt base, and then round the very front curve of the tongue, it's just that little bit lighter and grassy. Behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where that nice oily bubble comes out, and you get all the fruity kind of juicy esters rolling out of the beer from there. So for this one, I would say at the back of that oily bubble you do get some of these typical kind of Cascade notes. You've got that bit of that slightly darker grapefruit, but then as you come further forward from that, you start to get the juicy oranges. You start to get those kind of oily oranges and things like that, which is nice. The oranges actually start to become more kind of tangerine the further you go into it. I've always found the tangerines are a little bit more kind of juicy than the regular oranges. If you want a big oily orange, it's Amarillo you use rather than Mosaic, right enough. But then if you just go towards the tip of the tongue there, you've got a little bit of that kind of limey quality from the Equinaut. And the liminess gives it also kind of helps... the limey qualities that the beer has do help almost dry it out a little bit. It helps kind of the malt base and the fruity side of the beer connect. So overall, this is quite an interesting session IPA, this one. If I was blind tasting this, I would probably think this is an English IPA. I think it's definitely got that traditional English sort of element to it. I think it really could, the way that everything's going together in it, I think if they could sort of smoothen this one out and maybe use a bit more pale malt or something in it, I think this beer would really benefit from that, to be honest. I think the graininess and the sort of almost spiciness that it has in the middle of its malt base, I think it overpowers some of the other parts of the beer a little bit. But as it stands, it's quite a nice session IPA, this one. If you like English IPAs, you will enjoy this. Personally, as I've told you before, I like, if it comes to IPAs, I would always choose American, to be honest with you. I'm not a great fan of the traditional English light beers. It's always, for me, if it's English traditional beer, I always go for something dark. And this beer, it's just, beer is subjective. This one isn't quite to my sort of taste, but as it stands, if you consider it as an English IPA, it is pretty solid in that regard. It's just this style I'm not the greatest fan of. But I mean, in terms of how it goes and things like that, it is, fairly kind of solid, to be honest with you. If you like your English IPAs, I think you will enjoy this one. If you like your English bitters and you're looking for something a little bit more kind of hoppy and things, I think you'll enjoy this beer as well. It's definitely more of a grainy IPA rather than anything else. In terms of the mouthfeel, I would say that this beer it's fairly mid-bodied. The carbonation's quite smooth. Overall, I'd say the mouthfeel is a little bit, it's not the most oily of beers that you're going to come across. It does come across as being a little bit wet, which you usually get from Scottish beer because of the quality of the water. So it's quite a wet mouthfeel, this one. It's got a bit of smoothness to it, but it comes across as quite dry in the aftertaste. You're really getting a lot of the graininess in the middle of the palate coming out. and it's definitely not the hoppiness that's giving you that dryness to the beer. It's definitely the graininess. I mean, as I've said before, sometimes I think you can drink IPAs a little bit too fresh, and I don't think I'm having that issue with this one because the hops are coming out quite nicely in this one. There's a good bit of bitterness to this beer, and that's both from the malt base and from the hops in this, and I would say you're talking about 60 IBUs with this, maybe even a bit more than that, to be honest with you. It's quite heavy in terms of its IBUs, this beer. And of course, if you like the West Coast IPAs, you will like that, but I think if they could have that bitterness just from the hops rather than having it from the malt base as well, I think that would really make this beer shine. But I like the juicy fruitiness that it has. It's got a nice oily fruity quality, and they're a classic kind of mix of hops, well, classic Cascade, but a little bit more of a modern twist from the other ones. So the malt base, it has a bit of smoothness there, but quite dry and almost slightly spicy, and you've got a nice little bit of that floral aromaticity from the green side of the hops too, almost a little bit spicy. So overall, an interesting beer, this one. It's made me think a little bit. If you like English IPAs, you will enjoy this. If you like English bitters, I think you'll enjoy that. If you like a more grainy IPA generally, I think this is one that is going to suit your taste. But it's been cool to return to this brewery after about 2 years or so and have a go at one of their core range. I think I'm going to see if I can get a hold of the Orinoco Stout, because I've heard that that's a really nice beer, and it'll be cool to try something from these guys at the darker end of the spectrum as well. And you will see me review one of their kind of pilot batch beers in a couple of videos time as well. But let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Seven Peaks Session IPA at 3.9% from Drygate Brewing Company through in Glasgow. Definitely go and check out their restaurant as well. I had quite a nice time when I was going along there and trying different stuff. But thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Drygate Brewing Company as well. You will see me review more from these guys in the next little while, and check out my social media and things like that. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. This is the Seven Peaks Session IPA at 3.9% from Drygate Brewing Company through in Glasgow in Scotland. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slanger, let's go.